Today we're going to go over some basic anthropological theories, ranging from Boas to Durkheim. Our central question is going to be, how have such methodological changes affected the discipline of anthropology? Our main focal points will be cultural materialism, the Sapir-Whorf Hypothesis, Durkheim, Malinowski, the comparative method of anthropology, and Lewis Henry Morgan's findings on kinship.
While these aren't all the subjects we are exposed to during the course of the quarter, we feel these are some of the most radical turning points in anthropology that we can lead special meaning to. Furthermore, as Chicano scholars, we will be adding onto some of these topics with additional pieces of anecdotal evidence, illustrating how these topics have influenced our perception of the world. Let's get started.
For our first point, we're going to go over the comparative methods of anthropology. According to Franz Boas, the new shift in comparative anthropology is about moving away from the idea that singular thought arose from a shared point of origin and shifted into similar mindset that is vesseled from a singular idea. In other words, it is believed that similar beliefs and principles in society come from the fact that the human mind works in similar ways. The inner workings of the human brain works extremely similar to one another. This acknowledges the human inner workings can result in foundational similarities, while at the same time pointing to environmental factors to explain some of these differences in thought.
This helps us as people understand the way we are influenced and therefore carry out decisions. For example, I am a Chicana female who was born in the traditional Mexican household. I had an upbringing similarly to Chicana women. On the other hand, Jonathan, would you say that you have the same fundamental values, even though we were raised by different parents?
Yes, because although we were raised by different parents, we're still influenced by our culture and those around us, primarily Mexican/Chicano people, who uphold the same values because of our culture and the way our minds work. Point number 2. Emile Durkheim was a very prominent figure in French social anthropology. He claimed that social phenomena served their purpose in a specific culture for the benefit of it, in most cases, and if it did not help society, then it became obsolete. He used this to justify totemism, which is, in some indigenous cultures, meant granting special meaning to an animal as it pertains to the group.
Many Western cultures did not adopt these practices, yet they persisted in these tribes because, as Durkheim would point out, they serve a function in society, to organize it. Durkheim did not, however, do any field work.
He based his findings on the work of others. Bronislaw Malinowski, a Polish anthropologist on the other hand, stepped off the veranda, so to speak, and immersed himself in the day-to-day activities of indigenous people in New Guinea. He documented his findings for others to replicate, and accepted that his work was affected by his prior experiences and his presence. Our third point, Lewis Henry Morgan's findings on kinship. He traveled the Midwestern United States studying different indigenous tribes and came to the conclusion that kinship is a central foundation in most of these societies that dominate day-to-day life, from politics and who you can marry to territorial claims. Morgan also claims that social change can be attributed to material factors such as technology. These claims later on influenced other notable theorists such as Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels.
This would be considered the next turning point in anthropology, as we can frequently identify kinship as a foundational catalyst for our social needs. An example of this shaping our societal needs would be in the Chicana X community, a community that both Jonathan and I are part of. The Chicana minority have long withheld deeply rooted cultural ideals, one of which is the importance of family. Kinship is the foundation of which this prominent minority, such as Mexicans, are obligated to do their crucial part in human behavioral acts as we embark on, such as social organization, physical and emotional fulfillment.
Our fourth point, the Sapir-Whorf Hypothesis. Another major turn in the field of anthropology was the Sapir-Whorf Hypothesis, which stated that a person's language and grammar categories help shape a person's realities and thoughts. We found this to be a very important turn in the history of anthropology because up until then, most of what affected a person in society was materialistic, as Lewis Henry Morgan theorized, or otherwise had nothing to do with a person's language. Here, it is as if the dynamic roles of cause and effect have been reversed. Rather than external factors influencing a person's way of thought or speech, we see how a person's language and structure of the grammar affect the way they interact and perceive the world around them.
An example would be the indigenous tribe in West Africa once described by Professor James during lecture. These people do not employ locational markers such as left and right. Rather, they give directions in terms of north, west, south, and east, and often give the direction they are going in most of their encounters they have. This shows how the language impacts the way we view reality and they view reality. This was a topic that was especially important to us being fluent in both English and Spanish, because we felt that we had come to agree with this hypothesis. Being able to understand both languages definitely changes our perspective of the world.
Another example would be monolingual individuals will never know the pressure of translating for a mother's IRS papers or simply translating for a parental figure at the grocery store. You, as a bilingual individual, are the bridge between American and Mexican cultural roots. Building off that idea, this is what really makes individuals such as Yazmin and I look at American and Mexican social structure in a different light, as we're able to constructively criticize both ends of the spectrum. However, with the ability to speak out about such topics, at times we are rushed with backlash, such as our cultural significance in both Mexican and American culture.
Our fifth and final turning point in the podcast is the topic of cultural materialism. Lewis Henry Morgan helped set forth this idea that technological and economic factors, otherwise known as infrastructure, would have profound effect on society. He describes the changes in how humans would go hunt and gather their foods in the state of savagery, to set up forms of agriculture and shepherdism, and then finally large cities with increased laboral specialization due to change in agricultural technology. In other words, he viewed technology as materialistic factors that have the true X factor in what shapes and reforms society, not linguistics or ideological factors. We view this as another profound turning point because it influenced the likes of Marx and Engels, and how change in society isn't a human construct such as kinship and language, it's something entirely physical.
In all, we believe that cultural materialism, the Sapir Whorf Hypothesis, Durkheim, comparative methods of anthropology, and Morgan's kinship were the most significant turning points in the field of anthropology. This is because these 5 points illustrated really different points of view and ways at looking at anthropology, how to study it, and how to come at the essential questions of who are we as humans and what is our function in society and with each other.